There's something different about snow at night. It doesn't just fall. It absorbs sound, light, distance. Everything feels quieter, closer, wrong somehow. If you've ever driven through a snowstorm in the middle of nowhere, you know the feeling. The road disappears. The sky disappears. And for a while, it feels like the world disappears too. Tonight's story is about a group of friends who drove into a storm like that and never quite found their way out. There were 4 of them. Jason, the driver. Mark, riding shotgun. Lena and Chris in the back. They'd been on the road for hours, heading toward a remote cabin they'd rented for the weekend. A break from the city. No noise. No people. Just snow and silence. The weather forecast had mentioned light snowfall. Nothing serious. Nothing dangerous. At least, that's what they thought. It started gradually. Small flakes drifting across the windshield. Barely noticeable at first. Jason turned on the wipers. Slow. Steady. The road was still clear. Still visible. But within minutes, the snow thickened. The sky turned heavier. Darker. Like something was closing in around them. The headlights began to struggle. Snow filled the beams, reflecting back like a wall of white static. The road lines faded. Then disappeared. Jason slowed the car. "Can you still see it?" Mark asked. Jason didn't answer right away. "I think so." But his voice didn't sound certain. They kept driving. Carefully. Slowly. But something felt off. The same bent road sign appeared again. Then the same cluster of trees. Then the same broken fence. Lena leaned forward. "Didn't we pass that already?" No one answered. Because they all knew. They had. Mark checked his phone. No signal. Jason looked at the dashboard GPS. The screen flickered. Glitched. Then reset. The route line twisted, looping back on itself. Recalculating. Again. And again. And again. Chris was the first to notice. "Stop the car." Jason hesitated, then slowed to a halt. The engine idled. Snow fell thick around them. Chris pointed ahead. "Look." There, in the headlights, were footprints. Fresh. Crisp. Leading across the road. They watched in silence. The footprints didn't fade. Didn't fill with snow. They just stayed. Like they had been placed there. Perfectly. Deliberately. Lena whispered, "Who would be out here?" No answer. Only wind. Jason pressed the gas. The car rolled forward. Slowly crossing the line of footprints. They all turned. Watching as the tracks disappeared beneath the tires. And then, Chris spoke again. "They are still there." Jason stopped. Looked in the side mirror. The footprints were now beside the car. Keeping pace. "Stop the car," Lena said. This time, her voice shook. Jason did. The engine hummed softly. The snowstorm raged around them. The footprints stopped. Right outside the doors. No one moved. No one spoke. They just sat there. Listening. Watching. Waiting. Then. A soft sound. Not outside. But on the roof. A single step. Slow. Deliberate. Something had caught up. If you ever find yourself driving through a storm that doesn't feel right, don't stop. Because some things don't need to see you to find you. There's a kind of silence you only hear in winter. Not the peaceful kind. Something deeper. Heavier. Like the world is holding its breath. If you've ever stayed somewhere remote, completely alone, you might know the feeling. The sense that the quiet isn't empty. That something is listening. Waiting. Tonight's story is about a man who rented a cabin in the middle of winter, looking for solitude. But what he found instead was something that had already been there, long before he arrived. His name was Daniel Reeves. He worked remotely, needed a break from the city. Too much noise. Too many people. So he rented a cabin, deep in the woods, miles from the nearest town. The listing was simple. Wooden cabin. Fireplace. 1 bedroom. Total isolation. Exactly what he wanted. When he arrived, the snow was untouched. Perfect. No tire tracks. No footprints. Just a clean, white silence stretching in every direction. The key was where the owner said it would be. Under a small rock near the door. Daniel unlocked it. Stepped inside. Warm. That was the first thing he noticed. Too warm. Like someone had just been there. He paused. Then shook it off. Probably insulation. Or leftover heat. Still, something didn't feel right. He set his bag down. Looked around. Everything seemed normal. Clean. Organized. But not untouched. The couch cushion had a slight dip. The kitchen counter had a faint smear. Like something had been wiped away recently. Daniel frowned. Probably just the cleaners, he muttered. But the silence didn't agree. He checked the bedroom. The bed was made perfectly. But when he placed his hand on it, he froze. It was warm. Not just warm. Recently warm. Like someone had been lying there minutes ago. Daniel stepped outside. Needed air. Needed to clear his head. The snow crunched under his boots. He looked around. Still no footprints leading up to the cabin. But then, he noticed something. Tracks. Faint. Circling the cabin. Not leading to the door. Not leaving. Just going around. Over. And over. He went back inside. Locked the door. Checked the windows. Everything secure. The fire crackled softly. The light dimmed. Night settled in quickly. And with it, that silence again. Deeper now. Heavier. Daniel stepped into the bathroom. Turned on the light. Looked into the mirror. His reflection stared back. Normal. Still. But as he stood there, the glass began to fog. Slowly. From the inside. Daniel wiped the mirror with his sleeve. The fog cleared. For a second. Then, letters began to form. Faint. Uneven. Scratched through the condensation. You're in my room. Daniel backed away. Heart pounding. Then he heard it. Above him. A slow, heavy step. The ceiling creaked. Another step. Directly overhead. But there was no second floor. Daniel didn't sleep that night. He didn't leave either. Because by the time he reached the door, the handle wouldn't turn. And the footprints outside had changed. They weren't circling anymore. They were waiting. Right outside. If you ever stay somewhere that feels too quiet, listen carefully. Because you might not be alone. Even if you're the only one who arrived. There's a certain kind of silence that comes with a blackout. Not just the absence of light, but the absence of everything. No electricity. No signal. No connection to the outside world. Just darkness. And whatever happens to be out there with you. Most people think emergency broadcasts are meant to keep you safe. To guide you. To warn you. But sometimes, they're not meant for everyone. Tonight's story is about a family trapped during a winter blackout. Who heard a broadcast they were never supposed to receive? The storm hit faster than anyone expected. Heavy snowfall. Freezing winds. Power lines collapsing under the weight of ice. Within hours, the entire area went dark. The Carter family was used to winter storms. Living in a rural town meant outages were normal. Temporary. Manageable. But this one felt different. Stronger. Longer. Endless. Phones lost signal first. Then the internet. Then the backup generator failed. One by one. Every connection to the outside world disappeared. Until there was nothing left. Except silence. And the storm. The only thing still working was an old battery-powered radio. It had been sitting in a drawer for years. Barely used. The father, Daniel, turned it on. Static. Loud. Empty. He adjusted the dial slowly. Searching for anything. A weather report. A station. A voice. Then, something came through. A voice. Calm. Flat. Emotionless. This is an emergency broadcast. The family gathered closer. Listening. Relieved. Finally, information. But the message that followed wasn't what they expected. Do not go outside. That made sense. The storm was dangerous. But then, do not respond to any voices you hear. The room went still. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? No one answered. The radio continued. Do not open your door under any circumstances. The broadcast changed. It wasn't giving instructions anymore. It was describing something. Movement has been reported. Figures seen in the snow. Do not approach. The children looked at their parents. Confused. Afraid. This wasn't weather information. This was something else. The radio crackled. The signal weakened. The voice faded. Remain inside. Then silence. Static returned. The house felt smaller now. Colder. Like something had shifted. At first, it was faint. Barely noticeable. A soft knock. From the front door. Everyone froze. The knock came again. Slower. Heavier. Daniel. The father's name. Called from outside. The voice sounded exactly like him. Same tone. Same pitch. Same rhythm. But Daniel was standing in the room. Not outside. The knocking didn't stop. The voice didn't stop. It just kept calling. Waiting. Patient. Like it knew they were inside. Listening. And then, the radio turned back on. By itself. The same voice. Calm. Flat. Unchanged. You were not supposed to hear this broadcast. If you ever hear something calling you from outside during a storm, make sure you know which side of the door it's really on.